Essentially, your view is that Street's going to get educated on what Pat has to offer the more he meets with investors. That's a lot to put on a management change. Why so confident?
Yeah, so I want to take a step back and realize how bad the sentiment was and how long and how poorly Intel had executed until he got there, right? So he's kind of like crawling out of the basement window, so to speak. So the previous two CEOs had really made a series of mistakes over the last 5 years. So a guy like Pat, who had spent 20 years at Intel before he went to VMware, has some really good technical chops. I think that it's kind of like when Lisa Su first came to AMD. There's easy comps for Pat to get there.
We had a lot of discussions around Swan's tenure about whether you could run a very large integrated chip company with a finance background versus an engineering background. Do you think that debate has now been settled? And then secondly, I would ask you, I certainly don't expect you to believe AMD will be sitting still here.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, Bob was a great CFO, but again, he did not have a technical background in semiconductors, and I think that really hurt him. I think Bob gave it all he had. I think Pat is completely different. He was, basically the CTO of Intel before he left, and this is exactly what Intel needs. I mean, Intel, we've written about this. They're facing the biggest crisis for the company in at least 20, if not 30 years, going back to the 90s when I first started covering them, if not to the 80s when they first made the switch from originally Intel was a DRAM company and they got rid of DRAM in the 80s and then focused exclusively on processors. So this is a big deal, big crisis for Intel, and they need somebody with technical chops. There's probably 5 to 10 folks on the planet that could fix the company, and I think Pat's one of them. He was the best choice. As far as the AMD response, again, take a step back. It's not that AMD/Taiwan Semi, remember Taiwan Semi essentially does the manufacturing. It's not like Taiwan Semi has been stepping on the accelerator pedal for manufacturing. Really, this is a series of miscues by Intel. So, if Intel rights the ship, I don't really know if there's anything that AMD or Taiwan Semi can do. And we think that, again, whether it's Intel going internally, which is what Pat has said he prefers, or we do think that there's a chance that they could just, kind of fold up stakes and go to Taiwan Semi. I think within 2 to 3 years, it could look like Intel is pulled even with AMD, and I think that that's part of what Pat is going to talk about on the update next week.
Yeah, well, Christopher, though, a crisis like this, the one you've described, doesn't get resolved overnight. It takes years, and I wonder, when it comes to your focus on the company and you're trying to ascertain where the stock price is going, what are you going to look at as the key sort of markers along the way that he's making the progress you expect him to?
Yeah, great question. And again, it's in our estimation, and we talked to a lot of people in the industry, it's going to take Pat probably a year to hire the correct people, to fire the correct people within Intel, and really to get the people in place, because this is a people industry, right? You can throw as much money as you want at any semiconductor industry, and you won't get anywhere if you don't have the right people. So we think it's going to take him, probably a year, the bulk of 2021, to get the right people in there and move some of the wrong people out or change some of the people and personnel within Intel. And then I think at the end of this year, we'll have a very good picture as to whether he's got the right team or not. But again, this is going to take him a year just to get the right people in place. And then you're looking at another year to 2 years after 2021 to where they could potentially execute. In the meantime, we still think that there's going to be a processor price war between Intel and AMD. We've seen that before whenever AMD has gained market share.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.